Hello everybody, welcome to our next video from Scotland.
We've just come from Scotland, we travelled to Edinburgh, and then we got in our beast of a machine and travelled through the Highlands. Oh, it was such a great time. That was like English.
Oh fucking god.
I think this time what we'll do is try to talk as little as possible, mostly because of this terrible accent. And we'll let our videos and our photos tell the story.
We had an amazing time and hopefully we will be back.
Freedom!
We travelled to Edinburgh from Manchester. It's definitely one of our most favourite places that we've been to on our travels. The people are beautiful and the country is awesome, especially the Highlands. And we really hope that we can visit again to do the North Coast 500 route, which travels up the northernmost point of Scotland and around all of the Highlands. Perhaps, Dad, you can meet us in Loch Lomond next spring or summer and we can explore Loch Lomond and more of our family history. We found that there's a real juxtaposition of the old and new towns, which is separated by the Royal Mile, and that leads to the castle, which is always overlooking the city.
When we first arrived in Edinburgh, one of the first places that we went to visit was actually Edinburgh Castle. Really amazing place to be. It's just, it takes you back in time basically. You can try and imagine what it used to be when it was actually a place of power where kings used to live. We also visited an ancient graveyard, which was in the churchyards of the parish church of St Cuthbert, and it was a really eerie place. It was a massive graveyard and there were headstones that dated back to the 1500s. It was really interesting reading all their stories. And we also went to visit Camera Obscura and Illusion House, which was 6 levels of illusions and fun with science. There is a camera obscura which captures the light from around the city and projects it onto a big piece of metal which is sitting in the middle of the room. It's really quite cool. I think it would be a place that Ethan and Nate really would have loved to have visited, so Ethan and Nate, you should ask Dad to show you some of the funny photos that were taken.
After a couple of days in Edinburgh, we hired a car and travelled around the Black Isle, Inverness and Easteros, all in the Highlands, and we had an incredible time.
This is our little Fiat car that we've been driving around the Highlands. It's pretty cool. It's really small, but it's doing us good. Just walking to our little yurt that we're staying in Black Isle in Ethi. Here we are. Jamie's cooking us breakfast this morning. Well, this is where we've been staying in the Highlands.
We made it.
Good morning. This has been our view every day.
This is Rosemarkie Beach, where we spent quite a lot of time because it was really close to our yurt, and it's also the site for the bonfire night, which you'll see later in the video.
We are doing the hike to Fairy Glen Falls in the Scottish Highlands in a place called Black Isle. It's one of our many adventures that we're going on while we're here. And this is Sick Alice. And here we are at the waterfall. Union. We're currently standing on the site of the Battle of Culloden. We just spent some time in the museum learning about the history of it. It's very interesting. But this was the last hand-to-hand battle that occurred on British soil, and it was the government forces defeating the Jacobites, who were led by Bonnie Prince Charlie in his what was called a rebellion to try and take back the throne for a Stuart throne. And it was a very brutal and bloody battle, and the Jacobites this effectively was their defeat of their rebellion. So it's very interesting. This, where we're standing now, is the place where the Jacobites would have started charging at the government lines and making lots of noise and yelling and firing their guns, and then charging in what was known as the Highland Charge. But the government forces had some ways in which they could counter those attacks that they had practiced and they had taught all of their government forces, and so the Highland Charge wasn't very effective in this battle, as is told by the fact that they lost.
In Scotland there are a ton of castles. Obviously we didn't visit them all, but one of our favourites was the Dunrobin Castle. It's kind of like a fairy tale castle that overlooks the ocean, with an incredible garden that stretches so far that we couldn't take one photo in one shot.
While we were walking through the gardens, we found an area which had croquet set up, so Alice and I decided to play a game of croquet in the gardens of a castle, which is pretty surreal.
Another one of our most favourite castles that we went to was Urquhart Castle, which was a ruined castle and overlooked the Loch Ness. And for everybody asking, yes, we did see Loch Ness Monster, Nessie, as you'll see in one of our photos.
Urquhart Castle was really cool, and mostly just because it has such a long history and was the subject of so much fighting for power of the castle for so long. And the way that it ended was the people that were last in control literally blew up the entrance so that no one could use it anymore and just became abandoned. One of my favourite things on the trip to the Highlands was a visit to Glen Ord Distillery, a distillery for single malt Scotch whisky. We did a tasting and they took us around the distillery and told us the process of making the whisky, which is really, really interesting. The whisky was pretty good too.
We're just driving back to Edinburgh now. Just noticed that all of the hills around us are snow-capped. So there must have been some snow over there. It's pretty cool.
If you want.
And good.
If you think I'm sexy. Oh no, how does it go?
Okay.
If you want my body. How do you think I'm sexy? Come on, baby, let it show. If you want my body and you think bagpipe solo.
All you've got to
We have a piper down. We have a piper down.
Freedom!